Ok, va bene. Buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this heritage table. We have Enrico Billi, head of Forestieri, personalization program Maserati, Vincenzo Credi, president of ACI Modena, Orazio Pagani, president of Pagani Automobili, Matteo Panini, head of the Panini collection, and Tommaso Trussardi, head of Trussardi. So during these days, we have listened to many statements on how technologies are going to deeply change the automotive and cars. Electrification that is going to change all the different models. So we are at the dawn of a revolution. But on the other side, we are pretty attracted by the legacy, the heritage, what is known. And sometimes we say, well, luckily we have classic cars because we know what we have to deal with. And then there is a trend. So the classic car and the tradition and so on. So then we asked Tommaso maybe to share with us his vision, since he has a flair for trends, and of course he works in the fashion industry as well. So why is this so in the automotive field? It's not just an interest by lovers, by fans, but also by the public at large. So the appeal, the attraction from to this type of car. So is it true that you perceive more feelings with these classic cars, Tommaso? The answer is yes. So maybe over the past, we look forward and we saw the future with this will of, seeing the progress of an evolution, a better world. While today, and I want to be a little bit provocative, maybe today the future doesn't seem so good. So if we consider companies in the fashion industry or the automotive industry, if we consider what companies are doing today, they are looking back to the past to create new products. And so electrification, I'm not against electric vehicles. I own them for urban mobility, to reach, to go from A to B, to reach our destination. Maybe they, of course, are more effective. But if I look for an emotion, the EV doesn't allow me to, feel these emotions. Until a few months ago, when you bought a hypercar or sports car, the first thing you read was performance. Today, you do not find performance any longer because the EV, in a way, destroyed or flattened everything that is related to performance. So people realize maybe that happiness is not to go from 0 to 200 kilometers in 6 seconds, but how you reach that goal. So the fact, and of course, having a good infotainment, that's a source of happiness as well. Orazio, what would you like to add? Are classic cars, source of more emotions? I think that, of course, over the last century, the automotive industry was deeply transformed. So we have cars that after 100 years still provide a lot of emotions. Maybe other cars are younger, but they do not generate emotions. So you can you cannot say yes or no in an absolute way. I think that sometimes you have projects that create emotions and feelings even today, maybe not a lot, but some are there. So I think that the important thing is to have car manufacturers and designers. They must carry out this task. And so when we are going to manufacture the electrical vehicle, and of course we will do it one day, it's not just producing an electrical vehicle. Maybe in 5-6 years, the client will ask for that. Today, it's probably the customer asking for even the manual gearbox. And I'm, of course, referring to my customers, because there are also customers who absolutely want to buy Tesla. But my customer still wants to find some characteristics. I wanted to ask to Mr. Credi, ACI, Modena. So how is important here in Modena the tradition, since it's the credo of automotive? How do you imagine the classic motor industry? This is the Motor Valley. In 40 kilometers, as we always repeat, you can find the most important car manufacturers, collectors, Matteo as well, he's a collector, so the most important collectors in the world. So we have been born together with engines, motorsports and cars, and I see that this is a source of appeal even in young people as well. Well, maybe before we tend to address older people, while now this is a great source of attraction and attractiveness even in young people. I had the chance to take part in the Mille Miglia race, and you saw many young people taking pictures and, you know, getting closer to this traditional cars and classic cars. ACI, of course, we have the section of the historical cars. We followed this vision of selecting and following the classic cars, and with the Article 60 of 1992, so still 30 years ago, to some historical association to certify vehicles. The same car manufacturers like Ferrari, Pagani, they are not authorized to certify the history of vehicles. So you have this discrepancy between ACI and ASI, where we ask from the year 2020 until 29. So we created a record and we listed the importance of historical cars, because otherwise we see that there are people owning old cars but not classic, not historical cars, not important, and they are listed in other cases as a classic car just to avoid paying taxes. This is a delicate subject matter. We also worked with the ACI Storico and with the Alfa Romeo Record to list this, the cars that run the risk of being of extinction. And so in 2029 range, we selected those cars who run true risk of extinction. So this is an important topic, a very delicate one, and we will go back to this aspect and on the legal framework as well, which must be further improved and analyzed because there are some gaps and that must be dealt with. We talked about Maserati. Matteo Panini safeguarded the Maserati collection with his family, but I would like first of all to ask Enrico Billi, head of Fuoriserie and personalization project of Maserati. Maserati plays a role even with the historical cars. What are the programs of Maserati in this sense? So Fuoriserie is the customization program that has been built over 3 collections and 3 fundamental values, so sport, heritage, style, innovation, and the fact of experimenting. We also launched last year a classic program with the idea of protecting the heritage and the history of Maserati with 106 years of history, with 60,000 cars produced until the year 2000, more than 30 clubs that are located everywhere in the world with thousands of subscribers. So our brand and our customers deserve this type of service. And then you have customization, classic cars, to programs that are devoted for the brand passionate, brand lovers. We wanted to present these brands and this program during the Maserati Day. And so brand creates its own future by keeping close tied with its history and with the values of the past.
Yes, we started a program of historical archive, certifying and confirming the originality of the trellis, and the authentication program will start as the end of the year as a program which is progressively implemented, and it can also be replicated, it can also be expanded, and can also follow the reparation works and everything. Thank you, Enrico. And in the field of cars, your family cares for collections. How do you see collection today? How will it be impacted in the future? And what do you think? What about historical cars? Are they going to become like horses today? Well, collectioning horses, I think, is not really a long collection, not as long as the a collection of cars, because sooner or later the horse becomes old and it's not like a car. No, the nicest thing is that, well, I think I speak as a person born in Modena, so extremely fortunate for that, because I was born as a collection passionate. If I think about my path, well, I think about my father. He taught me how to collection objects, so we started I started as a child, so for me it's easy, and today I still have this spirit of the past. So a collection of a car or of another object is something great because it can be continued. An old car can be actually kept, but you also have the possibility of buying other cars, and the collection becomes modern. Even if you have old cars, there is a big difference between the heritage that a person may know and the heritage that the companies may propose, which is a completely different thing. Today is quite easy to speak about heritage, and I am happy of that. There has been an evolution, but let's not forget that the 70s and the 80s, well, collection passionates were could be numbered on the fingers of a hand. Well, it was possible probably to go on holiday abroad to collect cars, but it was possible to collect cars by signing a paper. And I think this is, it's important to say that this heritage is actually the basis of what we can do today as a collection passionates or as people selling cars to end users. We can build the softwares that today can be developed. In the 70s and in the 80s, well, apart the fact of going out on a Sunday for going to Serra Mazzoni to eat a dish of tagliatelle, there was not such a variety of events. Today we have a series of events and where we can meet. There is also an economic component, which unfortunately is part of the most rare and precious objects, and an object may become also an investment or an object of speculation. The car, well, is the nicest object you may have in your collection, and here I must say that Tommaso is right when he says that it gives you a tremendous emotion. You have an object in your collection which actually brings you everywhere, gives you an emotion, so it's the nicest thing. I conclude by saying that everything can be managed thanks to a simple connectivity, a simple communication. Internet became a very resourceful means of information, and it's enough for you to take a picture of a number plate and you can find any possible information on that car. So sometimes we speak about cars being manufactured in the 30s, in the 40s, that still live now. They can be restored, they can be repaired, so I'm extremely happy about that. I'm optimistic on this point of view. Even when we speak about cars being manufactured in the past, in the 30s, in the 40s, there is a problem of usage probably, but we will speak about that as well. But when we speak about collection, it's easier to collect information about cars. In the past, probably it was more difficult. I remember the first time I used a fax machine for receiving an image of a car from France. It was extremely difficult. In the past, we used to receive images of a car. We used to ask a friend to go and see it. Today, you post an ad on the internet. In 1 second, more than 50 million people know that your car is on sale. Well, you create trends. You do not only grasp the trends on the market. There are new phenomena that see you as a protagonist, as less sleek in the niche of collection. Prestomod is the repair. It's a kind of innovation repair that put together the old cars and the new reparation techniques. Let's start from your Giulia Alfa Olix, and let's come to the Maserati you presented a few days ago, 3200 GTC. Can you tell us more about this new phenomenon that is taking place in the world of collectionism? I think the word Extomod probably gave more visibility to something that was already existing. For those who love cars, whether you admit it or not, there is if you buy an object, if the object is not a masterpiece per se, like for example Horacio's cars, well, it doesn't work. So we speak about cars such as the ones that are already renowned. So the point is to do a technological upgrade of a car, but the difference is that we try to keep the pace with the evolution without changing the car too much. So we need to respect the creation, the creativity that the car has in itself. This is the red line that helped us to move a long time. when we thought about the new concept of Motor Valley, we thought about involving the whole production chain to modify, to have new proposals of modification of the new law that obliges us to a series of things. Whilst in Germany or in France you can register any kind of cars. So let's build a resto mode, let's build a new car. So that's why we took the Maserati new GT as a basis with its engine, empty engine, the old engine of the old car, and we decided to revamp it, to imagine it in a different way, in a potential development starting in '94 up to present. And we created this object, which is the result of the know-how from the raw material to the end products. The carbon fibers, the CMS gave us a new technology with which we managed to print the 3D molds really 2 times higher and with half of the costs and so on. So I believe that today, to reconnect to what I said at the beginning, there is a will to on the new customer side to buy a car that you have to use, that you must want to use, and where you appreciate the faults. Well, that's what we do. If you buy a car that is perfect, you use it 3 times and then that's it. You end up not using it. So we like when a car is not perfect. And the future customers are starting to understand this concept, that when it was difficult to drive a car, probably it was most interesting moment. But do you think that when we speak about the resto mode, we speak about a way to attract new generations towards the car, the contemporary car? Is that a new way of attracting the audience? Like every fashion items. Well, when something is in fashion, everybody wants it. At the end of the day, fashion is the will, everybody's will to homologate, to assimilate, to distinguish oneself. Trying to understand why something is fashionable is very difficult, but then people end up assimilating. It seems like a paradox, if you want, but that's the way it is. It's also a pretext to approach the new generations. I buy a young town car, I create the restaurant model, it's stronger, it's more comfortable, it's more secure. After a couple of years, I start looking around and looking for other models, or I go backwards. I look at Shamal, I realize that it's an exceptional car with an incredible design, and I look for other cars. So of course, we can identify this step like the intermediate step.
Tema omologazioni.
And now we are going to talk about another issue with Orazio Pagani. Orazio Pagani, his first cars are about 20 years, like Zonda. Their value increases day after day, and some of them have been repurchased and have been exhibited in your museum. What about the Rinascimento program, and what about heritage? Some words of introduction about what we have done to preserve these cars, the vintage cars, as in terms of heritage. When I got to Lamborghini, I realized I would ask where the archives were, and nothing was there. No Miura, no Countach, nothing could be found. And so the prototypes were really destroyed, and that was very sad to me. So when I started my own company was to really take care of each individual project. Once you have finished a detail and you put a signature on each piece and part of the process, that's what we started doing a few years ago. At all the various cars, are totally taken care of. It's a procedure that we put in place, and I'm very happy about, so that we can keep track. Sometimes I receive a telephone call from people working on Lamborghini. I worked in Lamborghini for 8-9 years. If I remember what the color of a certain car was, what about the interiors? Now they are building the historic archives that are fundamental. And this is done as a sort of respect and love towards cars and respect towards car owners. And then we have a program that is called Rinascimento, Renaissance, that checks every part of the car. And if the car is not original, or is not in very good conditions, it can be restored as it originally was, and this is highly appreciated. And today, our cars have a value that has increased by 10 times. And if you have spent €1 million and today you have a €5 million worth car, it is important to enhance the car portfolio. And then we also have the one-off changes according to customers' requests, and we provide our service, our assistance, and everything is documented. Orazio, how many Paganis are there out there, more or less? I don't know, really. Maybe about 400, something like that. Okay, thank you, Orazio. And now, President Credi, in the light of what has already been said about customization and continuation, and then we will talk about it with Maserati, a new set of rules is required. Something has been done as for the tuning, but those who are testing all that, they need to go through registration, and Italian red tape makes it difficult. What about the automobile club's position in Italy, and what are you doing to streamline these very bureaucratic rules, looking at the heritage aspect of cars, the value of assets? We have to keep the pace with the time. As Tommaso was saying, all these customizations have to be certified, and we also need to take safety into account first. Safety comes first. So we are trying and doing our best. We are trying to lead to a substantial change to the registration process, so it is not acceptable for somebody to go abroad and then come back. If they want to do things regularly, you need to certify according to specific standards, also at a European level. So we are asking for the review of the street code, because it is obsolete. These are works of art, vintage cars that have to be rescued and preserved rather than neglected or put in a garage or thrown away. We want to show them, and collectors are very jealous of their cars, and we want to exhibit them. We have Dolomiti Cup and we have the Florio car that is a 100-years-old car. So we enhance monuments, and cars deserve the same. So I think it is also a mix in terms of training towards these young people that have to grow and be educated in a right way. So we need to join forces and let the institutions understand it. Mr. Billy, what about Maserati's position, and what about OEM vis-à-vis these new trends? We have not yet talked about continuation, but especially in the UK, this is the trend followed by a few manufacturers. What is your point of view? What about the next future? What has been said is so interesting, and I will go back to what Tommaso said. It is a sort of a battle between the analogic and the digital worlds, modern, technological, electronic cars, autonomous driving cars that are too perfect, that do not make us dream, and we have sort of forgotten the human and emotional aspect of cars. A car, of course, a nice car really is inspiring. It makes us dream, and rest mode is sort of filter that starts by keeping the original spirit of iconic cars, so the beauty of them are maintained, and you forget about the flaws by adding and correcting the modern finish and with modern technology. It depends on what you want to do in terms of modernization with electric powertrain, electric lights, or other digital elements. As for Maserati, I mean, rest mode, as it started in a innovative digital way on a Instagram program together with Borromeo, who have our partners who have supported us in developing this program. And it is a digital creative development that starts from Ghibli in 1992, draws inspiration from a shaman design. And so it is a way to get closer to car lovers and to let them rediscover the asset values. The aim is not selling cars, but is rediscovering the brand value and the human aspect of Maserati that is very strong. Innovation is to be found in the fact that since usually you have development, approval of a budget, and afterwards you have the tests once the car is over. Recall project started from scratch. The customers, collectors are involved since the very beginning in terms of the style choices, design choices to be made. We don't know whether one day, who knows, this project will be implemented. It depends on the interest that it shows. I think data is absolutely encouraging. It is a totally innovative project launched through an Instagram dedicated channel with more than 16,000 followers. The average age is between 20-25 years, and there are many women, about 15%, whereas our institutional website, the percentage is only 5% women, and also the engagement rate is extremely high, between 12-15%, according to posts, and Resto Mode posts are the ones that are more successful. What about continuation? A few British car manufacturers like Aston Martin, Jaguar have already embarked upon. This is a further element. If we go back to the past, it is a customization program, a classic program, and the rest mode, in addition to communication experiment, is also a link between classics and customization. And that is very interesting for a certain number of reasons. Matteo, what do we need from institutions to protect and enhance this heritage? What is missing? Not much is missing. Today, we are talking about collectors. It means that a system is in place, that things work well. And then we are based in a region that is well structured from this point of view. Therefore, you see there are two categories of collectors, the ones who collect a lot and don't show anything, and others that keep their gates open. And so, of course, you cannot really make a list of what is required because there are too many variables, but it goes without saying that based on my experience abroad, talking with the collectors abroad, there are a few museums that are available and that provide tax allowances. Namely, today, museums, if we open up a collection, that becomes a museum. And just imagine what is enough, what is necessary to host visitors. Many times museums are really held, are kept alive thanks to the passion of the collector with the support of the company sometimes. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a specific request, demand to institutions to say what we need, what is missing or what is needed. Maybe something that should be done to protect heritage and to facilitate collectors. From certain point of views, our tax law is absolutely interesting, so we don't really need to ask that much, so much. And our goal maybe is to make things easier so that once you buy a car, then you may buy 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So at the end, it becomes easier. As we were saying, I totally go, I'm faced with paradoxes. If I buy a car in Munich, and even the car has got all the necessary documents, once we get to Italy, I cannot use this car anymore. Or there are a few offices that do not deal with vintage cars, and it keeps you waiting for months and months, whereas until 3 hours earlier, when before you crossed the border, the car was absolutely okay. So I think that this is what needs to be changed and facilitated, and so that makes life easier to collectors, so that collectors can really go on with their passion. But anyway, we are lucky enough in our country for what it can be done. But maybe some more help would be acceptable, would be welcome. You have talked with the MP from the Italian Parliament concerning heritage and vintage cars. So what is your feedback? There is a parliamentary group, and Tombolato is the president of it, of this committee, so that we can have the historic plates that were there. We didn't really deal with the rest mode issue, but talking about BMW CCT, he was quite enthusiastic about it. So from that point of view, I think that he was talking as a collector and lover of these vintage cars as such. But it is, on the one hand, it is okay, we are lucky, but on the other hand, it is paradoxical not allowing collectors to go on collecting in terms of registration. I mean, the collector won't use one's car to go to the city center, and it might be a problem with in terms of car safety. So you should simply allow collectors to use these cars on those special occasions, and then create system, a market that is dying. I would like to share a reflection with you talking about plates. We don't have any implementation decrees yet. So the reassignment of original plates in Italy, collectors are also fetishists in terms of plates. This is especially true for Italy. They would like to recover the original plates, and so we are trying and doing our best so that the original plates can be reassigned to these vintage cars. And we have a few regions that close their doors to vintage cars, and you need to have specific historic certificates to be granted, and so there are, as for young timers, you have limited access, and so I think that you should leave collectors free, and because they are the custodians of these assets over time. So these are two open issues. A lot is said about new carburetors. Synthetic carburetors have been talked about. What do you think about them for vintage cars? And another controversial issue, what about the electrification of vintage cars? What do you think about it? Will we get there? What do you think? I am very concise. We have a path from super, red, green, petrol, lead-free petrol, gas, and if they allow and if it is now possible to use them with vintage cars with certain modifications, why not? As for electrification, okay, it can be done, but my vintage car shouldn't be spoiled if it has its own combustion engine, and since it had been restored. It is a dream. And we go back to what we were saying. If I cannot use my original vintage car, why can I use it if it is electrified, where tendentially there are a bit more risks because of batteries, cables, and other technical problems? We should think about other things first. David, I was thinking of something that we were saying before. Everyone has got one's own personal customized plate, because a collector is a person can really drive one's own car at one time. What is the fear? I mean, let's copy this system, the personal plate model. Why shouldn't we copy what other countries do? And then we will see how collectors' plates would work, and that would be an immediate solution, and to facilitate things, and so that we can create a system, because when you make things easier, you give freedom to drive vintage cars, young timers, and so on and so forth. Enrico, Vincenzo, what do you think about it?
That's the debate we are having internally, and we are currently discussing on Instagram with our passionate public. If you would like to see a new car, would you like to see it with an VP6 engine or with another model? Well, it depends on the history, you know. Our future at Maserati, as we said last year, we have a new a hyper-performing thermal engine, but we know that now Maserati keeps on investing in electrical motors as well, in electrical engines. So this goes hand in hand. So what's the ACI position when it comes to the electrification of lines? I know you're a purist of collections. Yeah, personally, I agree with Matteo. you have to safeguard the cars. You can also add some modifications, but always respecting the nature and value of the car itself. As far as the number plates are concerned, I think historical cars will have more and more value if they have their old number plates. I was looking around to have some information about classical number plates, and I got informed in several entities. I was told that the implemented decrees are missing. I think we would give a new shape to the car if we would apply this theory. Tommaso, and we conclude by that. Would you electrify a classical car? And second, you have you're really passionate. You're extraordinary, as it is written on newspapers. I know that you realized almost your dreams in the field of cars. What are you missing? Would you like to drive a Formula One or? Well, what a deontological question. Yes, why not? As Matteo said, if you, I wouldn't name any brands, but if you take a car being created 30 years ago, and you take another car, an old car, which is not so beautiful, and you give new dignities to this car, you give a new electrical engine to it, well, why not? One of the coolest aspects of the electric cars is that they can really be be fast. So if you take an old car from Matteo's museum and you electrify it, well, somebody may shoot at you, but it can be quite challenging and interesting. If we consider our dreams, well, we haven't started this adventure yet. We are concluding the VMVTC. My dream will be to readapt it and to be able to make a small production. When we presented the car, we presented the suppliers, and then the suppliers explained to the journalists, they were the double in number, they explained exactly the technology of every single component. So that's our dream today, to be able to readapt our cars and to produce, to make a small series production. Well, the last question to Orazio. I know that you also are passionate for historical cars. I had the chance to dine in your old garage, and if I remember correctly, you're passionate for old cars as well, historical cars. Yes, in Argentina we had American historical cars. I grew up seeing the 40s. They date back to 1924, so everybody knew this kind of cars. So already when I was in Argentina, I used to buy those cars, and I'm still buying them. Many of those cars can be repaired, can be revamped. I love them. I love beautiful cars. Some of them I already have them. Some others I need to buy them. Thank you. Thank you all from Enrico Billi, Orazio Pagani, Matteo Panini, Tommaso Trussardi. Thank you for your time, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you to all participants, and have a nice evening. Thank you.